Good morning. My name is Jennifer DeMudd, and I am the Executive Director of the Manufacturing Growth Alliance, also known as MGA. We are a membership-based organization that provides services to help manufacturers build smart, lead strong, and establish a pathway for future growth. Our services drive solutions that make manufacturing in Michigan the most competitive and prosperous in the nation. So COVID-19 has accelerated digital transformation for manufacturers. A magazine called The Manufacturer, in partnership with IBM, recently completed a digital transformation assessment focused on manufacturers leveraging digital technologies. What they validated was that there was an increase in manufacturers leveraging digital technologies to support operations in order to accommodate customer needs and support business growth. There are a lot of great insights from the report. One finding was that greater support regarding the business case, identifying a benefits-backed roadmap, and upskilling the workforce would accelerate the adoption of digital technologies. Michigan is providing that support. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation, also known as the MEDC, recently launched an Industry 4.0 initiative to support small to medium manufacturers to be informed of Industry 4.0 technologies and to provide a pathway to implement these new technologies. Two components of the initiative are providing Michigan manufacturers with Industry 4.0 readiness assessments through Automation Alley and technology assessments through the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center. Today, we plan to have a conversation about Michigan's Industry 4.0 initiative and the assessments being offered to manufacturers at no cost. Before I introduce our guests, I have a few housekeeping items to share. We encourage questions and comments, so please type them in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We'll monitor the chat box and we will make sure that the presenters have an opportunity to respond. And we are recording the conversation so we can provide this content to a broader group of manufacturers in Michigan. So let's introduce our guests. Jamie Headley is the Director of Business Development at MMTC, also known as the Center. Manufacturing has been a significant part of her professional career. Thanks for being here, Jamie.
Thanks for having me.
Also joining us is Eric Davis, Technology Investment Analyst at Automation Alley. Eric has been with Automation Alley for just over 5 years and has a long history of building and analyzing systems. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate it.
So let's have a conversation about Industry 4.0 and the resources that both of your organizations are offering to small to medium manufacturers in Michigan. But before we dive into the details of I4.0, for those watching and listening, will you share a little bit about your own organizations to provide some context? And Jamie, do you mind starting?
Sure. So the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center, or the Center, is part of a nationwide network called the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So there's one of us in every state by law. We exist solely for the purpose of helping small to mid-sized manufacturers grow and prosper. We are affiliated with NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, on the federal side, and with the MEDC on the state side. And our focus on helping Michigan manufacturers is through training and consulting. So it's very manufacturing specific. So lean, quality systems, leadership, growth, market research, technology, cyber. We're in about 450 plants a year, so there's not much we haven't seen. And it's really rewarding work because sometimes we get lucky and there's grant money, so we can really help mitigate costs for manufacturers and again help them grow and prosper.
Thanks, Jamie. Eric, will you share a little bit about Automation Alley?
Yeah, sure. So Automation Alley is a nonprofit business accelerator, and we're based out of Troy, Michigan, and our main focus is helping manufacturers deal with Industry 4.0. And so we do that in a variety of different ways. One of them being the assessment program that I manage over here at Automation Alley, but also connecting startups to manufacturers, figuring out how to work out pilot programs with them. We also help build awareness with companies and with our tech takeovers. So our goal is to try to build as much knowledge as we can so that we can share with the manufacturers on all the various different parts of Industry 4.0, because there are many different sectors of it, many different rabbit holes you go down. So our job really is to kind of be that guiding voice throughout all of that. And so we do that in a variety of different ways.
Great, thank you, Eric.
Okay.
So Jamie, in my opening, I briefly mentioned, just briefly, about Michigan's Industry 4.0 initiative. You've been in manufacturing most of your, or maybe even all of your career. Will you share why this initiative is important?
Sure. I think a couple of reasons. Certainly, progress, right? We're just moving forward, right? That's why it's Industry 4.0. It's the fourth industrial revolution. And so, Michigan particularly was a big part of the other industrial revolutions with, automation and the assembly line and Henry Ford. So, the progress of moving forward, keeping us globally competitive. And, manufacturers now have a lot of issues that they're fighting against, right? We have COVID, we have a talent shortage. We have these things that they're making it tougher. And so we've got to find ways to be competitive. We've got to find ways to be more efficient. We've got to find ways to do more with less. COVID certainly added to that complexity. So technology is a real answer to a lot of the issues that manufacturers are facing. Again, around that talent shortage, around we don't have enough time, or we don't, maybe we don't have budget, or we've got this COVID issue now that we have to deal with. So there's a solution there that I think is critical for manufacturers. And I think there's a mystery around automation and technology and what's out there. There's kind of a myth that it's expensive. People would automatically think of industrial robots and those are hundreds of thousands of dollars and doesn't make sense for my business. And so part of what we want to do is educate folks that there are very, very cost-effective options out there that can have huge return on investment and make your business much more agile, not to mention much more profitable.
Profitable is key.
Profitable is key. Cash is king.
Yeah, right.
So Eric, Automation Alley, as you pointed out, has been the knowledge hub for Industry 4.0, supporting manufacturers. Through your lens, would you add anything to what Jamie just shared?
Yeah, so it truly is something that is taking over the world, Industry 4.0. We've seen the digitization of, even simple things in your daily life, your cell phone in your pocket, and how much power that you have with that, and how that's being utilized on the manufacturing workspace. So the goal of this initiative is really, or at least my understanding of it is to, provide that kind of unlift the veil of Industry 4.0 to manufacturers, because it is scary. They see all these new technologies being implemented. I'm sure they're feeling pressure from their customers, especially the larger customers, to innovate more, to automate things, to be more connected digitally. And so the goal of this is to kind of alleviate those fears and show manufacturers, if you just take a few small steps, you'll start to see those little payoffs like Jamie was talking about. If maybe we create a workflow, a digital online workflow between us and the the sales and the operations floor. Just some small little things here. And over time, as you start becoming a more digital mindset organization where you can feel comfortable taking on those risks and expanding the company, not just being we produce fixtures and jigs, but we provide X solution to companies, and that allows us to be more innovative with our thinking. That's kind of how it doesn't sound, it sounds a little bit different than just being a technology issue with Industry 4.0. It is a truly cultural and technology issue. So this initiative is designed to help alleviate some of those fears and kind of bring some knowledge to manufacturers on how to go about doing it.
Excellent. So two key partners with the state's Industry 4.0 initiative, as I mentioned, is Automation Alley and MMTC. You're providing some resources to support small to medium manufacturers do exactly what both of you just shared. Eric, will you share a bit about the readiness assessments that Automation Alley is offering to small to medium manufacturers? What is the assessment? What could a manufacturer expect through going through the assessment? Just give us a general overview of what is that assessment.
Yeah, so the online questionnaire that that essentially that leadership team, someone from the leadership team will be filling out. Essentially, what they're getting is they're getting a shined up mirror into what we see is going on in the company, right? So they fill out a questionnaire asking some simple questions of, how are the systems working in the marketing side? Is everyone aligned in their understanding of the mission, vision, and strategy? So these things aren't necessarily Industry 4.0, and that's intentional, because the whole point of it is we want to figure out what's the underlying business case. And so the evaluation is getting an idea from one leadership team person, what's your perception of going on in the company? And so then we take a look at all the companies that we've assessed over the past few years, and we say, what is, compared to what other manufacturers have said, where are your weaknesses and strengths? And those might be perceived, right? They might not actually be real, but at the end of the evaluation, what you're going to get is some 3 easy suggestions on essentially how to validate what you're thinking, how to validate the business case that you're trying to bring. And then the evaluation, while you're doing all the business side, brings in the technology piece. It incorporates how Industry 4.0 will fit in with your decision making. So that's kind of the lens that we look at it through with the evaluation. So essentially what a leadership, someone on a leadership team will get a link to the online form. They fill it out. The questions are pretty simple to fill out. It may take a little while, just to check the box, just because you got to think about it for a little bit. But at the end of it, you'll get a readout of your results. You'll get videos on how to interpret those results. And that's really important, because there could be a lot of misinterpretation if you're just looking at the images. And but hopefully at the end you'll get a better sense of how Industry 4.0 fits with you, not just on like a technology perspective, but just on a whole business perspective. And then where do you go from here? How do you take those results and now work with MMTC, or work with MEDC, or work with Automation Alley in some other capacity, or even other partner organizations? If you walk away from the leadership evaluation with some sort of actionable next step, and then you take a next step, that's a win for us. That's really what we're trying to do, is try to get you thinking and moving you towards the next step.
Okay. Before we jump over to the assessments that MMTC is providing, the technology assessments, I think maybe just a few more questions for you, Eric, and then we'll hear from Jamie about MMTC's assessment. So would you recommend just one person from the organization take that assessment, or you said leadership team? Do you recommend 1 or 2 individuals, and then you kind of compare results? Could you talk a little bit about, is it just one person? Is it possibly 2?
Yeah, so the initiative we have with MEDC, the evaluation is just one person.
Okay.
Now, from the evaluation, you could take our full assessment, which would involve your entire team. But I'll just kind of stick with the evaluation, which you only need one person to fill it out. You can pull another leadership team and kind of get an aggregate results. Or aggregate opinion. I don't think that would be, I'm not going to yell at you for doing that. It actually might make the data a little bit more rich. So yeah, but if you want to fill it out on your own, if you're, it's late at night, you got your cell phone up, that's how convenient and simple we want it to be. We don't want it to be a burdensome thing that, takes hours out of your day, but still provides some great value. So
if an individual on a leadership team with a manufacturer, is it a half an hour assessment? Is it 20 minutes? What's a general sense of time commitment?
I would say 20 minutes is more likely how long it'll take. You probably could whip through it in like 10 minutes, but I'd say 20 minutes is more likely how long it would take to fill out the assessment.
Okay. Thank you for answering those additional questions. And I just want to remind our viewers, you can put questions in the chat box. We'll be monitoring those questions and comments. So we're gonna jump over to Jamie. Same question for you, Jamie. What are the technology assessments that are being provided by MMTC, and I'll say at no cost, through this funding through the MEDC? Could you just share a bit about the technology assessments, its value, the time commitment?
So the technology assessment that we do is intended to give the company kind of an overall current state. And then the report out that comes with it is the, where are the opportunities? So the assessment takes about 2 hours. We do need to come on site to do a plant tour. We can do some of the other virtually if we would need to, if we wanted to limit that. But things that we're going to talk about during the assessment are basically, strategy around technology. So voice of customer, is your customer requiring you to acquire technology? And is that important? Or is your business strategy part of getting technology or not? And then also, what are you doing with current technology? Are you utilizing any current technology, an ERP system, cobots, standard work tools, those types of things? So are you using that now? And then what are your current systems? And so it's a conversation where we're looking at all of those things, as well as, we asked about some basic general business metrics, right? So, what are the pain points in the plant? What's turnover, what's going on? So what we're trying to gain through all of this is an overall, what makes sense for you? Where is the opportunity? So do you need technology? And if so, where's the ROI? So that's ultimately we want to come back. And so sometimes what we might come back with is, technology right now isn't as high a priority. Maybe we really need to be focused on shoring up systems first, because it doesn't do any good to automate a poor system, right? Then you just have an automated poor system. So sometimes that may be the outcome. Sometimes it may be, wow, there's a technology opportunity here. And again, what we're trying to get to is an understanding of where's the low-lying fruit. So where are you going to have the biggest impact? What's the ROI? What's the cost savings? We want to lay out a path for manufacturers, whether it's to go down technology or not, but for them to have a clear understanding of what all their options are and how to get to the next level, whatever their strategy and goal is. So it's pretty powerful. I can give you some examples when you're ready and tell you about some of the ones that we've done in the past and some of the outcomes.
Yeah, I certainly want to get to those examples. What is an outcome of an assessment? So will there be something tangible for the facility to move forward with? Could you share a little bit about what does that outcome look like, and does it provide next steps?
Sure. So after we do this 2-hour assessment, we go back and, couple of days to a week, we come back with a full-blown report out. So a summary of here's what our findings were, and we've talked about that typically in the initial meeting. So what's the current state? What's the summary of findings? And then it's a detailed list of recommendations. Here's what we think makes sense for next steps. And then sometimes there's grant money that can help with those next steps. Sometimes if it's CapEx, there isn't, but again, we'll help vet suppliers. So we don't sell technology. So if the answer is an MES system, we're not selling that. But what we can do is say, okay, we've gone out, again, we know what manufacturers need. We've gone out and we've vetted several of them. So we can now connect you with the supplier. We can set up the demo for you to see this. We can help you decide what makes sense. We can help project manage that implementation, because most manufacturers don't have a people closet where they can just go into a closet and pull a person who's got the right skill set and the time to manage a project implementation. So we can help with that. So those are the types of services that we can do, and those are the outcomes. But ultimately, it's a path forward, and the company can choose to take it or not. Sometimes it's a validation. So hey, here's where we're thinking we need to go, but it's really nice to have a second set of eyes come in and validate that. Yep, this is. And I know, by the way, we've overturned the right rocks. So we have looked at the right options. Mm-hmm. So it can go either way.
It sounds like, and I know both your organizations, so I know what's at the core of both of your organizations, and it is passion to serve manufacturers. But it sounds like for both organizations, and the assessment could be the first step with building a relationship with these manufacturers, that you're not in to do an assessment and say, okay, here you go, here's your report. It's really building a foundational relationship, if one doesn't already exist, with these manufacturers, and in both organizations support the manufacturer as they evolve into Industry 4.0, or enhance what they're currently doing.
Yeah, no, our goal is to be a resource and a trusted advisor. So we want manufacturers to feel like, hey, we're going down this path, but we want to, we need to bounce it off of someone, or do you know a resource who supplies this? It doesn't matter if a client calls us to talk about something that we don't provide the service for. We'll help find that resource. So that's our role.
And Eric, you also make connections. You mentioned in your introduction about supporting businesses that supply technology for Industry 4.0. And I know it goes much broader than that. But when we think about Automation Alley being a resource, long-term resource for manufacturers, do you want to expound a little bit about, the resources and the connections that that you support manufacturers with?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of go through the list of them. So the international business team helps manufacturers figure out how to expand their manufacturing, customer base across, different, not even just state lines, but also international lines as well. And then on the flip side, if it's an international company, we do have a landing space for them to come in, set up maybe a sales office to, get the lay of the land in the state of Michigan. Because a lot of technology companies, even internationally, are looking at Michigan as a great spot for customers. They realize there's so much manufacturing expertise here. So they want to come here and learn more about what we're doing. So there's that piece. The assessment program that I manage is designed really is more on the business or corporate governance side with companies. So as I said through the evaluation, you get some suggestions on how to improve the company. The full-blown assessment, it's a little bit more hands-on. We're getting a more broad array of answers from people at the bottom of the organization and people at the top of the organization, I guess, if you will, and still providing recommendations and giving them kind of a path of where to go from here. Similar to kind of how Jamie was saying, we're not going to be the solution providers. We're not going to be the ones that are going to install some sort of system. Our goal is to really kind of give you some thoughts and ideas of where to move forward. And then that's where you can tap into the other resources of Automation Alley, such as our membership base. So you get to meet other manufacturers and technology providers. You'll have access to some of the knowledge center that we have. So all of the what we call tech takeovers for the last few years, they're all online that you can access. You can learn about some of these new technologies and how they fit with your organization. And we also work with on the government side and defense side. So if companies are looking to enter in the defense space, we can, provide some guidance in some sort of way. And then even on the government side, if there are initiatives that manufacturers find important, to our local government officials, we can provide some sort of act as some sort of conduit to get their opinions heard in front of our leadership. So that way we can affect some sort of change at a broader level than just our region. So yeah, I think that primarily covers what we do. We do a lot of stuff. So if I'm missing anything.
Yeah, both organizations provide a lot of resources for manufacturers. You build relationships with manufacturers. So if I'm a manufacturer listening and I'm not connected to both of you, I'd be asking myself, why not? Now that, especially now that there's added value with the assessments under the Industry 4.0 initiative. So the assessments have been being delivered a little bit. The program just launched, but I'd love to hear from both of you, and we'll start with you, Jamie. What is the general feedback from the technology assessments that you're hearing? And if you have an example, we'd love to hear an example.
Sure. So we've done over 60 already. So it's getting a lot of traction very quickly. And the overall feedback has been very, very positive. So I'll give you an example. There's a small manufacturer makes specific equipment, so very job shop, built to custom type orders. And through the assessment, it wasn't heavy necessarily on technology in this case, but there wasn't a technology need. So the need that came out was a need for some inventory control, inventory management, also some costing. So some understanding of truing standard rates and getting a better costing. And in support of that, the technology was an MES system. So that's the technology. So luckily this particular project will be able to be covered under some of the grants that we have access to. So we'll be able to go in, and actually the work that we will do will be to help them understand and set up standard rates so that the costing information they're putting into the MES system is accurate. We'll also be able to help them with some value stream mapping and understanding of inventory control and lean systems, again, in support of that MES system. And then the grant also covers a portion of the MES software provider's time. Grants never ever cover capital equipment. So that part is out of pocket, but in this case, the client will walk away with some really good, strong internal systems, understanding of what they're doing, and then an MES system. And their out-of-pocket cost is going to be about 10 grand, and the grant covers the rest. So we're going to be able to have a significant impact. I mean, the ROI is, I think we figured the ROI was like 9 weeks. I mean, it was just ridiculously fast. So those kind of things are really exciting to be able to go in and do that with a manufacturer. You know, we've had other ones too, where you know, sensoring, or you know, other forms of automation or creation of standard work, and so there's just a lot of opportunity there, and it's exciting. You know, not everyone ends up into a major technology project, but I would say 75% are ending up in some type of, okay, let's go forward and do something. And hey, okay, now we have a technology plan. So maybe it's not even appropriate to do technology right now, but now we understand options, we understand cost, we understand ROI. So now we've just built this into our 2022 budget. So it's been very rewarding work.
Yeah, it just makes me thrilled to hear those stories, because we have to elevate and support our manufacturers in Michigan, and we have in the past, but this is just an elevated approach.
And that was, you know, the example I gave you was just phase one. I mean, phase two that we came back to this company is that they could actually build sensoring options into their product that would allow them to create a maintenance platform for their customers, which opens up another product line. So, you know, phase two is really based on diversity and growth, and even a little bit of pivoting for them. So then we have actually there's a phase three that we've lined out for them too as well. So pretty exciting stuff.
Eric, have you, I know the assessment was recently launched through Automation Alley. So do you have some general feedback from a few manufacturers that have been engaged?
Yeah, so we haven't launched the evaluation yet. However, it's a subset of the assessment. So I'll talk about some of the results from the assessment. So I won't necessarily say there's going to be like a stated ROI from it. However, I can provide some examples. So for example, we had a manufacturing company that recently was going into the defense industry, and we had noticed in the assessment that there was misalignment between what the leadership team was saying and what the workers were saying. And it came out in a gripe from one of the workers was, why did we change how we're packaging things for the last 10? We've been doing it the same way for the last 10 years. Why are we changing things? Well, it's because it was part of a longer term initiative from the leadership team to realize, you know what, we need to expand out of automotive. We need to go in defense. So, you know, we need to get our certifications. And part of dealing with these customers is we have to provide, you know, deliver the products in a different way. And so what had happened, what was the effect of that is you have gripes in the organization because there's not clear communication. And so systems weren't working properly. And then that ate at the bottom line. So there's just one example of that. Another example of a company that we had through, they're actually a brewery. They came in and we looked at their organizational structure and noticed that the CEO was wearing a ton of different hats, including operations and sales. And so we told them, what you need to do is you need to, you know, shift the organization to allow you to be in the best role that makes most sense. And in their case, they figured out, let's move them to a more sales CEO role, and then have some sort of, you know, corporate governance system to manage the operation side. And what that did for them was it allowed him to delegate more responsibility to the people who are working on the factory floor. And because he allowed them to do that, they have a much better understanding of the pain points that are going on in the manufacturing space they're working in. So they would have a much better idea of, hey, we need a few more tanks and we need some sensors on this thing in order to help improve our quality, improve our output. We're having issues with the ability to forecast our inventory. So we got to go through and we got to update our ERP system. So when we do the assessment, we're really looking at a high 30,000 foot level. And then we try to bring it down to, how does this trickle down into the rest of the organization? Just the daily activities that you do are all affected by even things of, not sharing your mission statement, right? It might not seem like something that's important, but if workers and leadership team don't understand where they can make their strategic decision making, where they can maybe be a little bit more flexible on some initiatives, and where maybe they need to be more constrained on some initiatives, they're kind of stuck in place and they may not be able to make a decision quickly. So that's kind of the broad, ROI that you'll see out of the assessment is just some general linkage of how does the day-to-day activity fit with my overall vision of the company and where the technology fit and the technology flows into it once you figure out the business side.
So Automation Alley and MMTC, great resources for manufacturers, especially under Industry 4.0. You provide assessments, you provide connection to resources, long-term, short-term planning. Where does a manufacturer begin? So if this is the first time they're hearing about Industry 4.0 initiative through the state, and we're looking at both the readiness assessment and the technology assessment, do they email both of you right after this webinar, or do they contact one or the other? What are your recommendations for how does a small to medium manufacturer become engaged this afternoon?
So the way since we're Automation Alley and I we're totally partnered on this. So you can start with one or the other. You don't have to do one or the other, but you can start with either way. So if a company reaches out to us and we do a technology assessment, after that's done, it then gets passed to Automation Alley and vice versa. So we're totally connected, and they're in a partnership to support the manufacturer with whatever makes sense for them. So if they wanted to start with us, they can go to our website and do the contact us with an inquiry. Hey, I'm interested in this, and someone will reach back to them. They can send. I can put in the chat. There is an email they can send to. They can reach out directly to me. If they're already working with us and they have a solutions manager that they already work with, they can reach out to them. They can call our switchboard. I mean, it's pretty easy. Anything that's convenient for them.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. We are in partnership on this, and we've been working on the same CRM system for the last few weeks and maintaining all its contacts. So we really are doing this together. As far as it doesn't matter which one you go to first. If you want to check out Automation Alley, the website's always a great place to go to. And if you have any questions, info@automationalley.com is a great way to get connected with us, because then you can talk to some of our membership team, and they can kind of get you down the path of what makes most sense.
Okay. And a question came in, and Jamie, I believe this is for you, or at least we'll start with you. Can you speak a little bit more about grant funding that's available for Industry 4.0 implementation support? I know you referenced earlier that sometime there are grant funds that will support a project. Could you expand on that a little bit, and how do companies access?
So access again, reach out to me or to us, and so there is grant funding that's available for different technology projects. It's kind of a case-by-case basis, so we have to look at what the application is and what's needed. But tech assessment is required for us to go out and look at that. But again, there's been applications for, again, support that helps with implementation of an MES system, which is kind of like a more shop floor oriented version of an ERP. A lot of small to mid-sized manufacturers don't need an ERP system, which is also more finance focused. They need something that's going to tell them what's going on their shop floor. So that's what an MES system does. Again, sensoring, you know, Internet of Things, dashboarding, you know, sometimes cobots or virtual reality, depending on the needs. So again, implementation and resources, cyber. There's some cyber work out there. There is a Pure Michigan Business Connect grant. It's an access grant. So if you're looking to get AS 9100 certified so that you could bid on DoD work, there's a grant that potentially would pay for part of that, and we could help you get certified for that. Or if you're looking to get the CMMC, the cyber maturity model isn't out yet, but there is a gap analysis that has to be done to meet DoD requirements to bid on that type of work. And so if companies are interested in that, we can help them apply for that grant. And again, that would allow us to then come in and do the gap analysis and ensure that they in fact have met the DoD requirements. So there's some of those out there. There's also, if somebody wanted to reach out, there's also a company that we partner with called McCormick Consulting. And that's what they do, is they find grants for you. So once they understand your need, they can monthly give you an update on, hey, here's the grants that meet the needs you're looking for. And I think it's like $600 a year, and then you get a monthly update of grants that are specific to you. So I think if people are looking for, it's hard to answer because again, without knowing specifics, but if somebody wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to dive in a little deeper.
I've had a few conversations with McCormick Consulting. Great organization, great team there. So thanks for bringing them up as well. Eric, would you like to respond to that question? I know you didn't cover grants in what you've shared so far, but I want to provide you with the opportunity.
Yeah, I imagine some of the grants are probably going to be similar to what Jamie has mentioned, at least as far as like statewide initiatives and federal initiatives. For Industry 4.0 implementation, I don't think we don't really have anything on that dives deep into that, like specific for us to implement. We do provide access to, you know, our Industry 4.0 accelerator, where we can connect companies to startups who are looking to try out new pilot programs. So you won't be receiving any grant funding for it, but it's the connection and the understanding of how to use that technology is the types of initiatives that we're able to directly support with grant dollars.
About four or 5 weeks ago, we had a webinar with the accelerator. So I can send that link at a different time. So, you know, we want to talk a little bit about challenges, not challenges within your organization, because you guys, you know, are a powerhouse of resources, tools to support manufacturers. But I would like to touch a little bit on some of the challenges that you've seen within manufacturing facilities. And both of you have touched on them a little bit. Perception that it's too expensive. Eric, I know you mentioned culture at one point. So maybe we'll start with you, Eric, with what are the challenges that Automation Alley has seen within a manufacturing facility that maybe prohibits that facility to move forward? I know culture's one, and I know you've spent some time on culture, and MMTC as well. Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, so actually we just did a research initiative with Lawrence Tech, Centropolis, and MEDC was, you know, the main provider of that research. And what we found is we asked not users of tech Industry 4.0, which a lot of them were manufacturers. And so what are the biggest pain points that you're running into? And a lot of them were saying, we just don't know what Industry 4.0 is. I think they have you know, for me to speak for them, they have an idea of what it might be and how it can be used. But because it's so broad, it's almost crippling to think about what are all the different changes I can do with Industry 4.0. So just general awareness about all the different technologies. The other piece is, as Jamie mentioned before, the understanding of the ROI. It's not going to make sense for a small manufacturer to drop hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital, especially if it's their first Industry 4.0 project. If it doesn't fail, that's an amazing result. However, if it does fail, it's going to put the company into a deep, you know, a financial burden. So that's the other focus, is trying to figure out what is the ROI that makes sense for your company. And then finally, culture. So one of the things that came out in the responses, so we did a survey to these manufacturers, and one of the responses, the words that came out quite a bit was fear. So it's fear of making the wrong decision, management not buying in, and so that's a lot of what it speaks to. Is it all kind of commingles, right? There's not an understanding of Industry 4.0, and because the culture is very process driven, that's how manufacturing's been done for the last 100 years, right? You go down the assembly line, we gotta make everything's locked down process. Whereas Industry 4.0 kind of is different. You're throwing in digital, which is a more creative process. So it's the meeting of those two realities and how do they work together. So that's how the culture fits into it. You got to have a management team that's willing to accept risks and understand what's a small risk and what's a big risk. And then from there, understanding the ROI, and then you can go from once you have the business case, you can go out in the world and say, okay, what is the Industry 4.0 application that meets this business case? And I think those three have to all be connected, and that's a challenge for manufacturers, especially when they're dealing with pressure from their suppliers, COVID-19 having and the lockdown measures limiting their ability to think just outside of, I need to get this production done. I need to make sure all my workers are there and everything. So it's, yeah, it's a lot on their plate, and it's got it related to the cost and the culture and general understanding of Industry 4.0.
So I'm gonna thank you, Eric. So I'm gonna add the same question to you, Jamie, challenges, but also if you could add on to that response, what happens if manufacturers don't evolve in some form of Industry 4.0?
I'll answer that part first. Blockbuster,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What happened to Blockbuster? They didn't see the writing on the wall, they didn't evolve, and they didn't take the necessary steps. So that's what happens. I mean, progress is going to go on. It's never going to stop. And again, it's where does it make sense for my business? And so it's understanding your options, what makes sense. So I think that's key. And I understand that because I actually ran a plant that made CD and DVD packaging. So we saw the writing on the wall and made some changes in that organization. So that's what happens if you aren't looking ahead. Challenges, I mean, I think the obvious challenges are, one of the things that Eric said was fear, and it's also fear of, is this going to eliminate people? Is this going to eliminate jobs? And that's not the case ever. That's not the case with technology. It's not the case with lean. But I think the real challenges that we're looking at that manufacturers are dealing with right now are lack of talent, lack of time, lack of budget, and maybe some COVID restrictions. These are the 4 big pay points we see. And the solutions that we bring are around those things, right? So the things that you can do to address those issues. So if we said just lack of talent, right? So culture, Eric brought that up. So are you doing the right things around your culture and leadership to become an employer of choice, to attract good talent, to retain good talent, and when you do retain that talent, to get people to be at their best? So that's one solution. Lean technologies, right? And again, lean is never about eliminating people, but lean is about eliminating the 8 types of waste and finding ways to be more efficient. So if I apply lean technologies and I go to one-piece flow, all of a sudden my lead time went from 7 weeks to 3. What does that mean for me? Or all of a sudden I can run 3 machines with 1 person as opposed to 3 people, and now I can redeploy that labor to do something else. Other things are skills acceleration and cross training, right? So if I'm short on talent, how do I make sure the critical tasks in the operation get done? Also, I'm engaging people, they're getting other opportunities, they're learning more. And if I've got my 30-year maintenance manager retiring with all this tribal knowledge, what am I doing in terms of a skills acceleration to get somebody else up to speed? Because we don't have 30 years, excuse me, to do that. And then finally, obviously, technology. Where can I utilize technology to eliminate those jobs, not eliminate the jobs, but replace those jobs that are dangerous, dull, or dirty? Right, so can I use technology maybe for those, and then take those people and again, redeploy them into something that's much more fulfilling, right? To do a job and give them the skills and the training to do something that gives them a bigger career path, more money, more opportunity, more engagement in the company. So those are the kind of things that we're looking at, is how do we make those pains go away? And sometimes you have to look at all four of those things. And we make it a better opportunity for the manufacturer, but also it's much more rewarding and better for the employee.
Yeah, add something onto that because Jamie brought up a really good point.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. So another an example of that fear that you talked about, automation is going to kill jobs. So we actually just had a company go through our Project Diamond program where we provided 300, or us with Oakland County through the federal CARES grant. We're able to provide 300 3D printers to companies, and one of the companies was using their 3D printer. And what they found out was the machinist was you know, it was replacing some of the work that he did. However, that allowed him to then go fabricate other parts and then also use that machine for more high quality parts. So the 3D printer was actually able to, you could just flip it on, have it print some simple parts. I think it was like some sort of hinge they were creating. And then that skilled worker can then use that skill for more high skilled activities. And that's the part that's the fear that you're talking about. And the understanding of technology, it's not an inhibitor, it's an expander of what the things you can do.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Jamie. Thanks.
That's like the same thing like an MES system. So if we can get good data in there, and I can keep my supervisors from having to spend time recording data manually and then somebody entering it in a system manually, and then we get the report out, but the report out comes out 3 days later. Right? It's a trailing indicator. It doesn't do me any good. I can't make any kind of proactive change. I know I ran bad 2 days ago or last shift. I can't do anything about that. So if we can utilize technology to get real-time accurate data, that's going to give us predictive indicators. I have a sensor on a machine and my machine's running hot and I sense vibration. I know I'm coming into a breakdown. I can do something proactive about that. Or now I've got data that I can do something with that's a leading indicator. And so now my supervisor's not doing that. So my supervisor can actually be leading. My supervisor can be, doing other things on the floor that are far more value added in terms of what we're paying them to do. So yeah, it's never about getting rid of people. It's about better utilization. And I'm guessing there's probably most supervisors would rather be doing something other than, recording data and putting it into the system.
I think many of us agree with that comment. So what I'm hearing from both of you, especially the past, 10 minutes or so answering the questions, that the innovative mindset is so critically important. I know MGA's had conversations with Notre Dame, University of Michigan, and other partners to talk about how do we cultivate that innovative mindset, because then you're talking about innovative in talent approaches and technology approaches and new systems. So that's so critically important for manufacturers. But I have one more question, and it's going to focus on customers, and then we're going to circle back and remind everyone about the assessments and how they can take advantage of those assessments. So my question, customers, how much are you hearing in the ecosystem of customer demands and how technology plays a part in that? And like, for example, Jamie, you talked about a little bit about, in a different context, but lead times. I believe, in what I'm hearing, is that customers are becoming more demanding. And the only way to satisfy those needs, those customer needs, is to consider 4.0 technologies. Can both of you talk about the customer demand side? And again, it's, become blockbuster. Because if your customers go away, obviously you don't have a business. So could you talk a little bit about customer demands that you're hearing manufacturers talk about? And then we'll circle back to the 4.0 assessments and we'll close out.
I think, obviously the customer demands that we're, quality has to be there, right? So there has to be a way to track, measure quality, and then make corrective actions. There's technology that can help with that. Again, managing lead times and on-time delivery, critical. Cost, right? So anybody who's worked in automotive knows that there's a cost component there. What are we doing around pricing? And so in order to be competitive around cost, you have to be efficient. So what are you doing to make sure that you can produce a high quality product delivered on time and do it at a cost that's acceptable to your customer, but you still make money? Right? We need to make sure our manufacturers are making money. It doesn't do any good to be lowest cost producer and take money to every pallet as it goes out the door. And then also growth strategies, right? So I need more suppliers. You're a great supplier, ABC company, but I need more from you. So what are the growth opportunities? Or I need something different from you. I'm trying to onshore. Boy, I need those circuit boards now. So how can we help those companies pivot so they can produce those things? So those are the things that manufacturers are going to hear from their customers that we can help assess, okay, where's that opportunity? How do you do that? And is there a technology that's going to help you get there? And then some customers just outright are saying, you have to have this technology. So you have to be able to supply me with real-time data where we stand, or I need to be able to see this. So those things are going to continue, right? I think people are becoming more demanding. We're an instant world. We want things right away, and we need things right away, and things are moving faster and faster and faster.
And there are manufacturers doing it, so.
Absolutely. There are manufacturers out there that don't have a talent problem. There are manufacturers out there that are thriving. There are manufacturers out there that aren't struggling with these pain points, but they're the ones that are being innovative and aggressive and taking proactive approaches.
They're not the huge ones either. There's some
No.
manufacturers that are doing some amazing things. Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head on all of that. The one other thing I would add is we've almost seen from manufacturers, I don't know how to explain it, like a rebuke of that in terms of they're looking for other industries to serve because they are feeling the pressure of these customers. They're feeling the pressure of these lead times. And so Industry 4.0 can be a way to help to figure out the linkage between, what are the requirements for an automotive company? What are the requirements for a medical device company? And how similar are they? And how do we make sure that we can handle both of those exceptions at the same time? So kind of just a little bit of what we've seen the manufacturer response to that in some ways is an expansion to other industries than the ones they're in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So if your industry was impacted by COVID and, oh my gosh, I've got to find a different supply base, or I've got to find a different customer base.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of that with market research of, okay, let's look at your current equipment. Let's look at your tooling. Let's look at your opportunity there. So what could you pivot into? Can you easily go from what you're doing now in automotive to medical device or to, defense or aerospace? Or could you pivot altogether to something completely different? What are the barriers to entry to that? What are the costs to that? What makes sense? And at what reach would you have?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we just have a few minutes left. I know you both know what an elevator pitch is, so I'm going to ask both of you to give an elevator pitch on why should a manufacturer, we'll start with you, Eric. Why should a manufacturer engage with Automation Alley for the readiness assessments? And then we'll ask Jamie the same question, just the why.
Yeah. So what a manufacturer will gain is they'll gain peace of mind, and they'll gain an understanding of how to move forward in this kind of chaotic Industry 4.0 landscape that we're in. And so the Industry 4.0 assessment is going to help link the business side of the organization to the culture side, to the technology side, and the financial side as well, because that's really that's very important to you to make sure you're getting your money back. And so that's what the evaluation is going to do. It's going to create that linkage, and that's going to provide you some easy exercises on how to figure out where's the next steps. And then along with that, you'll get membership into the Automation Alley. You get Automation Alley membership, essential membership, which is what we're providing to our manufacturers. So you'll get the tools to figure out Industry 4.0, and then the next steps to implement it at your organization.
Thank you, Eric. Jamie?
I would say, why not? I mean, why wouldn't you do this? It's 2 hours of your time. There's really no risk. There's no cost. Why wouldn't you do it? And obviously, again, the benefits are you have another set of eyes of, again, people who are industry experts who are in 450 plants a year, who see a lot. We've been doing this for over 25 years. To come in and say, hey, here's what we see. By the way, we've got some benchmarking tools that validate our recommendations and why. So, I mean, I say it's why wouldn't you?
All right, I give you both about a 9.5. Oh, thank you so much for the conversation today. It's been very insightful. For those listening, again, we'll send this recording out for those that registered, and we'll get this posted on MGA social and via email distribution. So thank you again both for taking an hour out of your day to inform our small to medium manufacturers about why Industry 4.0 is important and how they can take some first steps, sometimes first steps, but sometimes enhanced steps towards Industry 4.0. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your week, both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Jenny.
Absolutely.